How you doing, man?
Good. How are you?
Yeah, not too bad. Thank you for coming on and listening to us. I'm Keith Lockhart. Here's my brother Dean.
Hello.
And today we're supposed to be discussing video games. Well, in particular, the rise and fall of what's been happening in the last 15 years or so in terms of the industry. From what my research tells me is that it has become one of the largest entertainment industries in the entire world, eclipsing both music and movies. So yeah, Dean, you picked this topic, so why don't you start off with, I don't know, your personal anecdote or something like that?
Sure. So my background in gaming, any sort of competitive gaming anyway, comes from playing a lot of Counter-Strike when I was younger. And in those days, everything was dedicated servers. And for anyone that doesn't know what that is, it's like you have a server that's not playing the game, that's just running hosting a server for everyone else to play the game on. It doesn't really happen with consoles. It was a PC gaming specific thing. And towards the end of, I guess, the 2000s, when we got into sort of 2010, console gaming and online became much more prevalent with, COD and oh god, how many other Gears of War, so many different games, Halo, and that was all. Everything they did was based on the lack of dedicated servers. So it was one of the players was the hoster, which actually sucks for anyone that knows what ADSL 2, how shit it can be, or even ADSL 1. You're looking at having a dedicated server running everything means there's no player that has a distinct advantage. But the other thing we lost is things like sponsorships. So because back in the day you could hire out your own dedicated server to run for your clan or your group or whatever, there was a bunch of sponsorship opportunities there, whether it be Internode or there's so many of them, so I could go through a giant list, but none of that exists anymore unless you go to those sort of old school games. They do, occasionally a game will come out and have a dedicated server option, but most people don't use that. It's all peer finding and it's just all automated, and you could end up playing people in another country and just have no way of knowing if that's the case or not. So first of all, I grew up in an FPS landscape in particular where everyone had a pretty even landscape in terms of their sort of delay and latency on the server, and that all changed when a good example is Black Ops 2 doesn't have a dedicated server option.
I think it was approximately Modern Warfare 2 was the moment when it happened.
Yeah, I think it was
as
2.
A big thing.
2 was bad, and then 3 was worse.
I do remember specifically on Steam there were groups that were going to forego Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2 because it didn't have dedicated servers. And there's an infamous picture on the internet where it's all these people part of that group where it's ban Call of Duty 2 or whatever, and then there's 500 names and 400 of them are playing Call of Duty 2. Modern Warfare 2, sorry.
Modern Warfare, yeah.
Yeah, and it was because it didn't matter to them back in the day. It was the... Yeah,
well, that segues on to my next point, which is FPS games went in that direction. So, the initial Battlefield games, no one cared about what kind of skin you had on your weapon. No one cared about any of that. No, that didn't exist.
It did technically exist, but you could only do it to your own PC.
It was a mod, and no one else could see it.
Exactly.
It was just for you. And when you had a good example is Counter-Strike Source, they enabled this option SV Pure, which basically meant that anyone with any extra code tagged onto their game that stuff just gets cut out and it doesn't work. So you play.
Well, yeah, that's to stop hacking.
Well, it was
essentially
yeah.
through other
It was
things,
also
like
you can have small advantages with things like scripts and
okay.
certain you could remove certain textures or change textures so that they were easily you could see around.
I do remember downloading those for the original Counter-Strike.
Yeah, it was whatever. I don't think the advantage was huge, but when it came to competitive play, it was important. And now the other thing the other point is things like achievements became something that every game had for some reason.
I think that was, in my own personal opinion, I don't know if this is for certain or not, but I'm pretty sure Xbox 360 was when they made it official, because every single game had some form of achievements on it. Even on the arcade store, the old style Minesweeper and that sort of stuff.
You're right, actually. I do remember that. And yeah, I remember logging back into Counter-Strike Source after not playing it for a couple of years. And I had 0 achievements. And I just laughed because I was like, I didn't even have the achievement that was like, get 50 headshots or something.
Yeah.
Or get more than three kills with a Desert Eagle in one round. I was just like,
that's essentially,
oh my God,
that's essentially why I gave up on certain games. I haven't replayed them. As for Counter-Strike itself, I think I played maybe at the maximum 5 games of CSGO.
Oh yeah.
It's not the same thing anymore.
Well, that's
sadly. I mean, Source still holds up to me. Source still holds up, and then you still find, and they still have dedicated Source servers on Source.
I play them.
I have no idea about CS:GO, whether it's got dedicated servers or not. I don't know because
you have the option because I mean you have to if you're going to be competitive in that landscape.
Just to cut to the chase off here, but so what is you brought up the topic of competitive gaming. And obviously we're talking about how multiplayer servers are run. And you're saying that this is kind of a downfall and a downgrade in many respects. But the industry itself has never been more popular in terms of esports. It's enormous now.
I mean, you could make the same argument about music if you wanted to. We can have that discussion if that's a whole other discussion. But you could say the music industry is booming, or in the 90s, it was booming. And... what did that lead us to? I mean,
it always changes forms. But then the question I'm bringing to you is what about those other games? I mean, just bringing this up is interesting because what we're talking about essentially are video games, with the exception of Call of Duty. Almost every single, in fact, I would say almost Call of Duty, but every single game that now is an enormous esport. We're talking, Dota 2. We're talking. Hearthstone, we're talking every single one of these games was based originally off another video game's mod. Someone had come together, a group of people built a mod around a game. I mean, even Counter-Strike was a mod for Half-Life 1.
I mean,
and so essentially you have an entire genre that now is the most popular genre of video games, which is esports.
It's what Gabe from Steam said. It's the people that create content are better content creators than the companies themselves that are meant to be making content.
There's potentially billions of them. So that makes sense.
I mean, like Dota is a better game than Warcraft 3, in my opinion. I mean, classic.
I'd still give Defense of the Ancients an old try on the Warcraft 3.
Oh look,
rather than play Dota 2 or Dota 1. I played
Dota 2 last night, and honestly, it takes my computer so long to load it because they've stuck a bullshit cinematic on the launch. So like you launch the game and it launches into this CGI cinematic that takes forever. And yeah, you can cancel it, but you can't choose not to see it. I'm sure that you could probably put a bit of patch of code into Steam. Like I haven't bothered. I'm sure you could. I mean, Steam's pretty good like that. And I'll probably look into it, but I had no idea this was going to happen. And I've been invited to play a game with some friends, and they're all waiting for me because it's just taking like forever to load on my computer. Anyway, so I finally get in and I'm like, yeah, I'm here. And then, they've already done matchmaking and they found a match already and they're waiting for me to accept it. And I'm like, fucking hell. But yeah, I mean, and Dota is just flooded with this now. You've got, it's just full of like, buy this new skin and you can get this weapon and you can put a gem in it, records how many kills you get or how many wards you place. And Some
But
of
are
these
they
things
dedicated servers? That's the question I'm asking. Are they dedicated servers?
I actually don't know.
Well, that's the thing. I'm pretty sure they're peer-to-peer networking servers.
I think they might be.
And there's no real issue with the host hosting. I mean, internet these days seems to be more than enough to host peer-to-peer network games.
That's not really the... yes, that's true. It wasn't back in the day, which is why it was terrible.
Yes, absolutely.
But the point... What I'm trying to say is there was a third party involved, which was internet service providers, various people that set servers up. That was a third party involved in the gaming community. And we relied on them to provide good services so that we could play on a stable server. And a lot of those, they still exist to some degree, but a lot of that has been removed.
Well, there is quite a bit of overhead, from what I understand.
Yeah, I mean, it's not cheap to do. But companies like, obviously Call of Duty is a good example. They managed to outsource that onto the computers of the players themselves because they had to do it for consoles. So they worked out they could do it for PC as well.
Exactly.
But in my opinion, it drastically degraded the quality of the game. I mean, don't get me started on things like recoil. I mean,
you're showing your elitist roots over
yeah, sure.
Well,
okay, but
dude,
so I play a lot of D&D, and when a big part of D&D is just dice rolls, and you roll a dice and you get what you get, and that's part of the game. It's meant to be it's meant to have this big random element to it.
But it doesn't happen every hour on the hour.
Yeah,
you get a bad roll.
But if you take something like CS:GO, since you mentioned it. The spray patterns on the guns in CS:GO are actually set, so there's small variations between them, but they are set spray patterns. So if
I remember that, and the reason why the AK was the best gun was essentially because almost every single, from what I remember reading, this was a long time ago, but an enemy, if you saw an enemy and an enemy saw you, it was something close to nearly 50-60% of people would jump up and to the left. And funnily enough, that's exactly where the recoil went for the AK-47 would fire dead on first round and then up and to the right, which would almost result always in either a headshot or a body shot. That was
the thing. So in CS, and you can actually look this up if you want. There's a YouTube video about it. If you just type in, CS source... versus CS:GO spray patterns or recoil or whatever. You'll see a video of it and people do a comparison, and you'll see that the CS:GO one is the same pattern every single time, whereas the Counter-Strike Source one has it's not perfectly random, obviously, but it's much more random. And so, but what that meant is, people would argue that Source is an easier game because the hitboxes are bigger and all that sort of stuff. And that's probably true. But at the end of the day, once you went past 3 bullets in a burst fire or 4 bullets, become really unpredictable.
Yeah,
you watch a pro game of CS:GO now, they're all spraying, all of them.
Oh,
they don't
really?
Stop. They don't. I mean, they do bursts over long distances, but as soon as you get a little bit closer, you watch how they know the pattern. They know exactly what it is. So they hold down mouse 1 and they just move their mouse in the right way so that all the bullets have a good chance of headshotting.
Turn into laser. Yeah.
And so it's literally.
So is everyone walking around with a heavy machine gun or what?
Well, yeah. So guns that before were not considered particularly good in Source,
like the Uzi or the Oomp.
Well, like the Styro Org is a good example. Like it was.
I love that.
It was good in Source, but it was not used in competitive play much at all.
No.
If ever.
It takes way too long to zoom in and zoom out.
But all the scoped weapons in Go are really sought after. They're really common. The scoped automatic weapons in particular.
Do they
some
have
of the best
the
weapons.
exact same loadout as CS?
It's not exactly the same.
So SG550 is not in it? The Sig Saw?
I couldn't tell you off the top of my head. I think it does have all of the weapons that Source had. I think maybe some of them slightly different.
I know this TMP was a little different.
Yeah, they do have. Yeah, they are slightly different. They have this weird burst, like single shot. It's not a shotgun, but it's like a single shot. Heavy pistol looking thing. I don't really understand it. It works pretty well if you're close up.
Yeah, the Deagle will never be outclassed.
The thing is, the Deagle is actually terrible for the money in CS:GO.
Oh, really?
People still use it because it's so trusty. It's a big cannon. It's a big hand cannon secondary. Right?
Yeah.
So
Did you
it's
remember
still a big weapon, but it's just not what it was.
Do you remember old Deagle Warehouse when we used to play? way back in the day, Diego Warehouse.
How could I forget?
150 rounds or so of Diego Warehouse with nothing but grenades and Deagles and just a bunch of boxes.
Yeah.
Lots of fun. Lots of fun.
Well, that's the other thing about Go is I mean, I played custom maps on there. They seem alright, but it's just it just doesn't feel like it has the same. I've never been in a CS:GO map where someone's like changed the gravity to 300 or something and you're floating around.
I remember those days, Scout Snipes.
Yeah, and I've never been in the game where like an admin's just screwing around and just setting people on fire and just all these random things like that. It seems like a uniquely sourced thing.
Yeah. Well, that was the gift and God that Gabe gave us.
Yeah.
Yeah, PC Master Race God, Gaben. He's incredible at building the tools just for the community to do what they could.
Yeah, I guess and I was talking before about how CS:GO now, if you look at the money involved, it's absolutely astronomical. Like
wasn't there an entire gambling industry based off the skins in that game? I don't know the basics of it.
So every like little every time you have marketplace, you're gonna have these weird. It happens in Dota as well. You get these items that are worth like thousands of dollars for no reason.
But like how can you trade them to other people? I don't understand.
Yeah, they trade them.
Okay, that makes sense.
And you get Steam dollars or whatever they call it.
Okay.
You've got a Steam wallet and you can use it to buy games or trade other items or whatever. It's just like anything. If something's rare, then you can get money for it.
Well, it's interesting you mentioned that because the netcode for certain games works really well, and for others it doesn't. And it's interesting to see what games explode and what games don't, depending on how well they react to play input. And there's some games which are absolutely terrible, but they're good games for the most part, but they're absolutely terrible multiplayer games. Just to get some clarification here, I love playing single player games. I like stories. I like exploring worlds, that sort of thing. Dean seems to be a bit of the opposite at times, although we'll delve into each other's worlds and that side of things. But yeah, it's interesting that there's a schism in the industry based on. I mean, look at a good example would be I'm going a little off the rails here, but that Among Us game, which has just come out, which is huge. Have you heard of this game?
I have heard of it, but I've not seen anything about it.
It's essentially 10 crewmates on a ship, and one of them happens to be an intruder, and they all have to do like little menial tasks, and the intruder has to either sabotage the ship, like destroy the oxygen supply, or make the engine melt down, and he can kill all the other players, and the other players have to vote him out before, and eject him out of the spaceship before he kills everyone, or at least, sabotages the ship enough so that they're all dead. And that game was made, from what I remember, like quite a while ago, but now it's exploded in popularity. It's enormous. They've made apparently something close to over $1 billion just from microtransactions in this game, and that's because not only is the netcode written well, but it's just a very simple, casual game that you can play on any platform. You can play it on your phone, you can play it on a PC, you can play it on Xbox, you can play it on PlayStation, and it's all multi-platform. And a lot of YouTubers and high-end Twitch streamers have started. I think they got paid to play. I don't know.
Well, yeah,
but essentially all playing it.
This
together.
is the other thing that sort of this segues nicely into the last point, which is the availability of ad revenue surrounding competitive play. So,
yeah, we should start with microtransactions first.
That you're right.
Because the original microtransaction that I recall that ever occurred before was in Oblivion, when Bethesda had the goal to make a horse armor downloadable content for the Xbox 360, and they charged $15 for the bloody thing, from what I can recall, for $15 Australian, and people laughed at that, but they made some money on it apparently, and it did not die. And from then on, I mean, let's go back even further than that if we can, and just try to recall back in the day when before you could download content to your game. I mean, mods are a small thing; they're community made, and they're approximately like the biggest mod that I play with is probably about 2 gigabytes, and that's 20 radio stations for Fallout 4. So there's hundreds of hours of audio clips. But way back in the day, if you wanted to buy an expansion for your video game, you had to buy an expansion disc. So the best one by far from almost everyone's memory would be Lord of Destruction for Diablo 2.
Yeah.
Which was essentially a game in itself that turned out to be almost longer than the original game. And you paid, let's say maybe half the price? Or maybe you paid full price, something close to that.
I think Lord of Destruction was just slightly cheaper than the original.
Yeah.
But yeah,
back in the day, you bought expansions.
That's how it was. But it was, you bought the expansion because the game itself you've been replaying that many times. You know, like how many times did I replay Diablo 2 and then Lord of Destruction came out? And of course I'd buy it because I get so much playtime out of the game I bought the first time.
Yeah.
I think I bought Diablo 2, or like there's Diablo box sets.
Yeah,
Diablo 1, Diablo 2, and Diablo 2 Lord of Destruction.
Yeah, I think I bought
a booklet.
maybe 2 or 3 of them.
I've bought at least 3 of those because you lose your disc, or you can't remember, you lose your code or whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
And then I bought it again on Blizzard, so the digital version of it. But yeah, I mean, it used to be that you bought a game because it was worth buying, and you bought the expansion because it gave you so much more content, and you were already playing the game anyway, so you knew you'd get use out of it. I mean, it takes StarCraft though. I didn't even buy the last. The thing is, I couldn't even call it. It's not even an expansion. It's literally a game chopped into 3 games and sold separately. Like, it's because you play. Well,
the campaign was way too long to be for one game. I think it would have been one and a half or 2 games. That whole campaign.
You could argue that for an RTS, that's the case. But I mean, I finished the Terran one in like 6 hours or something. So.
Oh, okay. Yeah, no, you are right. So but I mean, for an RTS game. Look at the original Command & Conquer or Red Alert. Those campaigns are 30 missions or something close to that, 20 or 30 missions, and each one of them might take you 20, 30 minutes to complete.
But they were actually hard.
Oh yeah, that was very, very difficult. I mean, StarCraft 2 is not that difficult from what I can tell.
It is. If you put it on hard difficulty, it is. But I mean, Command & Conquer is hard anyway.
Oh yeah. They're always difficult. Have you played the remastered collection?
Yeah. I didn't get all the way through. I started from the start, and I think I got 5.
Does it look good?
Well, it looks much better. I mean, it's still.
It's exactly the same game, right?
A friend that complained about it, like, oh, it's just the same game. It's just looks a little nicer. I'm like, that's what remastered means.
That's exactly what it should be. It should be the same game, but it looks better.
Yeah, didn't say remixed.
Yeah. Yeah, quite a bit of a difference between remix and remastered.
Or re-recorded. But yeah, so I think we're losing track of the point, which was microtransactions, and it used to be that you bought an expansion with heaps of content, and now you buy little tidbits of content at a time.
Well, I think this is where 2 topics of discussion, where I mentioned earlier the schism between the single player and the multiplayer games, is they realise that you can create expansions for single player games, and you can charge a lot of money, well, relatively close to the same amount of money for almost an entirely new game.
If it's good. It has to be good, though.
Some people will buy it nonetheless and then replay through the whole thing with the extra items and that sort of stuff.
No, I mean, if they enjoyed the original game enough, they'll spend money on the expansion.
Yeah, and then they realise that there's an entire multiplayer genre for people who just play nothing but multiplayer games. So all they do, they want to get home from work and they want to destroy people. Or they want to, they do what they can with their friends. They want to hang out, they want to build something together. And they realise that, hey, we can not just make money off the single player players, we can make a hell of a lot more off the multiplayer players. Because you can't play this content that this guy has unless everyone else has it as well.
Yeah, well,
they realise they can sell the same thing 4 times.
That's exactly right. And World of Warcraft, perfect example of that. I mean, yes, you don't need to buy the new expansions, but you can't actually access the full game and play with your friends if you don't buy them. So and to this day, they still expect you to buy a bunch of expansions in a row. Like, they give you like most of the game up front. Like, you buy one expansion, you get all the ones before it.
These days, yeah. But they charge $60 for it.
But there's still a few left over after the fact. You can't just go buy World of Warcraft latest expansion for a set amount of money. That's a reasonable amount of money. You can't just buy the current version of World of Warcraft for a reasonable amount of money. You have to buy at least a couple of games in order to play the up-to-date version.
And if you notice, every time you buy one, especially the last time I bought a retail version of it, it comes with 10 game passes in it. So you can get 10 other people to join you, and then they will have to buy their full game.
But the worst part about it is you can't actually use any of the content in its original form from any of those games that you apparently own.
Yeah, they're all empty. No one's helping you.
Yeah, but not only that, but they've been rejigged into the new version of the game to suit the new version of the game. So, I mean, Classic is the example.
I haven't played Classic, so tell me the gist of how that works.
So Classic really is a remix of.
Instead of a remaster,
it's actually a remix of Vanilla WoW. So they went in and they actually worked out where a bunch of bugs were. They actually intentionally left bugs in, which I kind of liked.
Really?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I mean,
like what?
Just certain things that actually affected the gameplay.
Do they have an unarmed skill that you have to level up to 400 in order to use fist weapons?
Yeah. Actually, I'm not sure about that one. I think yes.
I remember at one point I was the only person on a server with that achievement because my character was since 2007 I've been playing it. It's a long time.
There was definitely things about it that were really true to the original. They did put stuff like phasing in, which was obviously completely new.
What is phasing?
It's where you can be playing on the same server, but you don't see a player on that server because it's too populated. There's not enough enemies to kill. So like in the original WoW, when a new a new server would launch, you would have 200 people waiting in the starting area for a particular boss scorpion to respawn.
I remember Burning Crusade. That was like that. And we had
exactly
Alliance and Horde were in a literally a standstill. It was the Cold War, and if anyone attacked anyone, you immediately put on a blacklist and then attack whenever you appeared in some town or you were out leveling. So that was interesting.
Yeah, so
they got the phasing.
Phasing is to make it easier to complete quests, so that you don't have a million people all in one section waiting for one thing, one quest item or one enemy to kill. Or it could work the other way around, where you might be able to join a group from someone playing on another server because you don't have enough people on yours. So it could be your server is barren, and you're trying to complete a quest and you can't find anyone to complete it with, but it'll let you sort of chat and party up with someone on another server.
It sounds exactly like what Tinder needs. Your server is barren. So they have some cool bugs and still in there.
So they added some stuff that worked, and I think they did a couple of things that sort of ruined the game in a way. But they certainly have. Do they still have all the pets and the cosmetics that you can buy? They wouldn't get rid of the microtransactions, right? I don't actually know.
You didn't check the shop?
I never looked into any of that stuff.
Is the Pokemon thing still in it?
No, not in vanilla. No.
But that was. You have to admit that was probably the most genius idea. Of any development company ever. Yeah. Let's put a video game inside our video game.
Yeah, I heard you like video games, so you can go where you go.
Well, the Fallout 4 did that actually as well, where they had all those arcade games based on the universe, and you can play them on your Pip-Boy in-game.
Oh, yeah.
It's just, it's insane when you think about it.
I think it's cool.
I think it is great. Speaking of which, I saw news.
If you had to buy that game in the game.
Yeah. Oh my god. That would be the end of times. That would literally be burn down the development studio.
Can you imagine playing Witcher 3 or something, and yet you can buy a Gwent deck or something, only $3.
Yeah.
Only $3
USD in real life money? Yeah, no, thank
American
you.
USD dollars.
Jesus, yeah, that would be the end of times.
But that's what this is the reason I brought this this discussion to the table is I actually see things going that way, and you've got. And now that there's a lot of money surrounding video games where there wasn't before.
Before it used to be an art form, and now it's an industry.
I mean, there was money in it, but there wasn't money in the presenting of it.
It wasn't the commodification of a hobby.
Yeah, so you could have back before you could sell a game to someone and make some money, but then once they bought the game, they could play it whenever they wanted for as long as they wanted, and you weren't getting any more money out of them.
With the exception of WoW.
Well, yeah, same subscription stuff, but that was a relatively new thing when WoW came around. And they weren't the first to do it, but it was relatively new. So my thing about before about the dedicated servers for, just to go back to Counter-Strike, the dedicated servers were paid for by people that would rent them, and they had really simple advertisements. The point was like, Internode makes a server, and everyone knows what Internode is because they play Counter-Strike. And so when they're looking for like, who should I go with my internet? And they see Internode on there. They're like, maybe go on this one. They got good servers.
Yeah, well, that's
so it was both a way for them to advertise, and they also made money by renting those servers out as private servers to people. And it was a system that worked pretty well. And that was where the support was. So you had the support for the game coming from a third party. It didn't come from the producers of the game.
Well, speaking of which, I mean, Fallout 76, they tried to sell private servers to people. Guess how much?
What?
$15 a month.
Yeah. So that's quite a bit. But
That's insane. It's private servers. I mean, the point was that private servers, you could put any mods on it that you wanted to.
Yeah.
But for the most part, you can still run mods on Fallout 76. Sorry, I'm getting off the topic here. But yeah, the point is that developers are willing to sell it if it makes them money.
Yeah.
But they're not going to,
Yeah.
If you buy what they should do is they should. I mean, I absolutely hate pre-orders. I don't like the idea of them. I think they're pointless.
Yeah.
I don't really like the idea. But I mean, it's probably the reason why we have the industry the way it is now, is because merchandising is probably earns far more money than the games ever will, in some respects, and for some games. But if you pre-ordered a game and it came with a year's worth of server time for a multiplayer game, people probably definitely jump on that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But they don't think about bundling that sort of thing, and I don't know why. I haven't really thought about it much. But yeah,
I just feel like it's just one of those situations where I don't think of this as a feature of the game industry. Like to me, it seems more like a bug that's sort of run rampant because it makes money.
It sounds like more of a marketing decision.
It almost does seem like that, and it's proof is in the pudding with so many games, and they come out, and you're like, why the hell would you do that?
Can you give me a good example?
I don't know.
I can think of a few, but I want.
I've already said a couple, like just not having dedicated servers for Black Ops 2 or was Modern Warfare 3, I think was the same. What was the other one? Counter-Strike Source, when it first came out, they by default they had this lighting HD lighting bloom thing, which was cool because it was a Half-Life 2 feature, and it was good for Half-Life 2.
Back when bloom was still acceptable.
Yeah, but you'd walk out, like I remember playing Dust.
Oh yeah. I remember this. You'd walk from a dark area to a bright area.
It was the first time I played Dust 1 on CS Source, and I walked out of the dark. It's literally called dark. That's what people call it. I think now they call it something else in CS, called tunnels or whatever. I walked out of dark, and I thought someone had flashbanged me, but it was just the fucking HD lighting. It was just like glaring, like in the middle of the desert, and you walked out of a dark tunnel.
Then you got shot and you died. You were like a fly into a UV.
I got shot and died because there was an enemy right there.
You're like a fly into a UV
I could
lamp.
not see them. And as soon as I realised that, I was like, well, I'm turning that off.
Yeah, pretty much. I have actually heard about a lot of multiplayer games, including Battlefield. A lot of players play with the colour blindness mode on because it highlights certain things that shouldn't be highlighted during smoke.
Oh yeah, I mean this goes back to
and that sort of stuff.
Battlefield Vietnam. People would turn the the
grass settings down,
grass quality,
and shadows all off,
and shadows down because you could see through the foliage easier.
Yeah, you'd be able to see snow.
I mean, that's an age-old thing with first-person shooters, though. It's not.
Do you think they do that stuff anymore?
Oh yeah, but that's why something like SV Pure was so good for Counter-Strike Source, and I think
what's SV Pure?
So it's SV_Pure. It's just a console command, and you just put SV_Pure1,
and it turns off all the extra,
and all of the extra stuff just disappears. But it also got rid of debris. So it got rid of barrels. It got rid of the tops of trees disappeared, I'm pretty sure, as well. All that, like, there's like, you walk around in like dust too, and there's like newspapers and crap all over the floor. All that just disappears. All the only stuff you keep are like, boxes, burnt out cars, like actual things you can jump on and hide behind and all that sort of stuff. That all stays.
Stuff that's bulletproof.
But all of the stuff that you can move, or that can be moved, or that could possibly get in the way of your vision, that all just disappears off the server. And it also, obviously on top of all the other things it does, which is disable other people's decals that they've got, custom crosshairs, all of that sort of stuff. It just goes all back to default.
Oh, okay.
And so that was why that setting was unprecedented. Like, that didn't really exist, as far as I know. That didn't exist on the Source Center before that, and it worked. It was really good. It just completely leveled the playing field. And I remember players that had these scripts that they'd load up. They'd bring it to a competition on a flash drive and load it up. And like, there was this old joke that this one guy had one that connected to some Russian server somewhere and downloaded a 2 gigabyte file. I think that was just all a joke, but it it just goes to show the extent that this stuff happened.
Can we mention surf maps for a second? Because
I'm not a big fan.
But the concept itself seems absolutely insane to me. Because considering how long they've been around, you'd think they'd already that people would make games based off that already by now. But they haven't. Okay, so surf maps are essentially you play your normal character in Counter-Strike Source or CS:GO. I don't even know.
CS:GO.
And there's no guns. And
They can
they can be,
be.
but essentially you use the acceleration from falling from a certain height to surf a generally triangular surface along entire maps, and you need to balance yourself, and then you get launched off said platform, and then you land on another while keeping your acceleration. And the point is to make it all the way to the end of the map, and then you restart again, essentially.
Often if the first person gets there on the map, there's like a loaded AWP, and you can turn around and shoot the other people that are trying to follow you.
It's pretty much the greatest briefing tool of all time.
So it came about because there used to be the climb maps was the first thing, which is people would
climb. You talked about the old stunt jumping maps.
Yeah. So the jump maps or climb maps is what it was the predecessor of the surf map, and it was had a bunch of obstacles you had to jump around, and we had to jump in a very particular way to reach the next little part. If you fell, you'd die and have to restart or something. And there's some people figured out that you could and this was normal from like average maps. You jump out a window and you'd slide weirdly down a roof and be like, that was weird. And that's obviously where surfing came from. People realised that if you had a particular angle that you were falling down, you could actually manipulate it and slide up around it. And people put that in jump maps. So they were like, a new obstacle was that you'd have to like surf this weird curve to this next area, and then the entire maps just became surfing, and there was no jump.
Well, it's interesting because it seems like an entirely different, like it's just a dichotomy between, tactical violence and surf maps. Like it just seems like those two things shouldn't exist in the same game, but they do, which is really, really quite strange. It would be like playing, we're playing Fortnite and doing a game of Flower with a flower petal. You know what I mean? Like, you got super competitiveness versus just relaxation. It just seemed like an entirely different dichotomy, and I'm surprised it hasn't taken off. Like, I mean, there are games, from what I hear, called Glide and that sort of stuff on Steam, which are just kind of similar, where you avoid obstacles and you just float through it infinite.
I actually think that something like a surf map actually exists within the culture of Counter-Strike. It doesn't, which is why there's no surf game, because I think it started off with being about controlling your character in Counter-Strike. So, and bunny hopping is a good example of this. I mean,
can you explain bunny hopping?
Okay, so bunny hopping is a very similar concept to surfing in terms of if you gain enough speed and land on the floor at a particular angle and then jump again in a particular way, you can actually maintain your momentum.
Like a pogo stick, essentially.
Yes, kind of, but you sort of... You've got a lot more...
acceleration.
And you've got a lot more movement across the ground than you do. Like, you don't gain any height. You just go further and your speed increases.
Yeah. And if you time it correctly, you can get from one side of the map.
Yeah, so... And
10 times faster.
It's much easier to do on a decline. So if you... which is why I say it's similar to the surfing idea. It's like you've got mini little moments of surfing, but you can only exploit them on declines. So,
yeah, and it doesn't require any rhythm, but bunny hopping does.
Yeah, so I mean, there's no map where there's a natural surf ramp. Like no one would build a map like that as a competitive map. But there are maps with declines that are at just the right level where if you jump down them and then sort of bunny hop is the term, off at the right time on the right angle, you can actually gain a whole bunch of speed. And it was actually banned in competition. So the rule was, I remember when I was playing Source, the rule was you can get 2 jumps and that's it. Any more than that, and you got 1 strike. Because it was strictly like no. Because if you...
And was it strike against you or your whole team?
Your whole team. So it's like...
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So it's if anyone on your team is bunny hopping around the map, they're just going to flat out go no. And, that's 1 strike and you'll be disqualified if you get too many. I think it was 3 strikes or something, you're disqualified. And, you can get strikes by talking, harassing the other team in all chat or something like that. There was a bunch of ways you can get strikes to be disqualified from the game.
I actually watched, I still have your 50 Wars video on my PC.
Fight for your invite.
Yeah. I've still got that with the old In Flames soundtrack.
That was a cool little video.
Dean has some recordings of his old Counter-Strike competitive games, and he was one of the highlight.
So that was actually a really good example where the random
highlight
spray
plays.
pattern from the AK was seriously in my advantage.
Oh, yeah. You killed a bunch of people while you were flashed. You were blind.
No, it was like I walked around the corner, there was 2 guys there, and I didn't expect
Oh, wait, no, yes.
all I did was just kind of panic and level off a few bullets, and I managed to headshot 2 of them.
You did Arnold Schwarzenegger's wife in True Lies, which just fires
the way it looks is like super pro. Like, it looks like I'm a
Oh, yeah, it totally looks... Oh, it is one of the clutchest moves I've ever seen.
But the funny thing is, I was actually... the bomb was already down, and we'd pretty much lost the round. And I could have, if I'd gone on, I maybe could have clutched it, but it was too late. So we lost the round anyway. But the point is, I killed 2 of them, and they lost all of their gear and weapons, which means something.
Yeah. That carries over the next round.
We actually went on to win that game. So
I'm
not saying I was instrumental in it, but every little bit helps.
Can we talk about Halo for a sec?
Yeah, sure.
Because Halo, as you know, it only really ever had, from what I know, dedicated servers on PC.
Oh yeah, I think you're right. Actually, well, consoles generally just didn't have dedicated servers. I don't know if that's across the board or.
This is the interesting point that I'm trying to make, because Halo Remastered is now on PC. Now I haven't checked to see if it has dedicated servers or not, because I just bought it today. But the question about Halo is the fact that I don't think Halo, from what I know, I've only played up to 3. I've never played 4 or 5. Is that there has never been a single microtransaction in a Halo game, to my knowledge.
Yeah, you might be right. I don't actually know.
They came up with Forge in Halo 2, I think, or Halo 3. I think it was 2, even, or it might have been Halo 3. Forge was essentially a map maker.
Yeah.
Or you can edit the maps that already existed and do whatever you want. Well, I mean, that itself is just insane when you think about it. That's very much a Gaben Steam stuff like tool to give to someone.
Well, I feel like
the
guys at Halo, like that, I think they kept their finger on the pulse.
Well, they at the same time that they changed development studios, from what I know. You know what I mean? Like Bungie used to be a different company. I mean, these days they are apparently a laughingstock. I didn't play Anthem, but I did not hear good things.
I wouldn't bother. I mean,
I've seen it for $5 on the shelf at EB Games, but
I haven't had a functioning Xbox in like 10 years. Yeah, they're just. I mean, they're good, but they just don't fucking last.
Yeah, well, our dad still has one. We still have one here.
What, 360?
Yes, we've got an old 360 that still works.
I'm surprised it works.
Well, I haven't powered it up in about 2 years, so I don't know, but yeah, for the most part, it works. But yeah, and Halo didn't seem to have any microtransactions.
No.
I think that's why it's got such a dedicated fan base. Because they know that the makers give a shit about their players and their audience.
Yeah, I mean, Halo still has a pretty strong competitive scene as far as I know. It certainly did last time I sort of checked it out.
I mean, it's not high-end, crazy competitive
it's not,
like Dota 2 or HOG.
Yeah, I mean, is Heroes of Earth still a thing?
Yeah, Heroes of Earth.
Oh, fuck, man, I should get back on that.
Yeah, no, it's still a thing. But I think it's nowhere near as powerful or as ubiquitous as Dota 2 or
StarCraft 2.
StarCraft 2.
Which is, I mean, let's face it, a big part of that is Korea.
Yeah, that's true. Well, I don't think I've ever understood. Have anyone explained to me why it is such a cultural phenomenon over there? I mean, they do play a lot of games, and they are technically. I mean, if you look at their internet speeds, they're #1 in the world. Yeah, but I never had that explained to me, like how.
I don't know if it's because culturally they identify with the game a lot, or if it's because they dominated it. They dominated StarCraft 1 so much, and those players went on to play StarCraft 2.
But that was literally almost half a generation ago.
Yeah,
you've got StarCraft players who are professional players of StarCraft 1 who raise their kids who now play it professionally StarCraft 2.
Yeah, but you've got the other thing you remember is they have the draft. The draft. Right? It's they have to do military service.
Okay, yes, of course.
And there's this thing with those guys where actually there's a lot of
that's
players,
true for Singapore as well. I think.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think there's a lot of players that are at the top of the game. And then they go do military service, and I think it's 4 years. I could be wrong, and don't quote me, but often when they come back, they've lost all their chops because they don't get enough time to practice. And they're older as well, so their hand-eye coordination suffers and all sorts of things.
Oh yeah, I have heard that's an interesting thing though. Is I have heard that the hand-eye coordination seems to peak. This is not. Don't think this is gospel, but from what I remember on a Linus Tech Tips video. When you hit around about your 25th, 26th birthday, apparently that's when your reaction speeds are peaked. They're the absolute best. After that, apparently it slows down and it goes down very quickly.
Probably depends how much drinking you do.
Yeah, that's quite possibly, but the Koreans like to drink. Alright, we're just going to take a break here and we'll be back. And we're back. Nice to see you guys. How you doing? Dane, what are we drinking tonight?
So, I got these from work.
Now, where do you work?
Just at a liquor store down the road.
Good on you.
This is called Zytho Brewing Tropical Haze.
That's ZYTHO. Zytho Brewing Tropical Haze. Up to 5%. Yeah.
Zythophile. So Zytho is short for Zythophile, which means a person who loves all things beer. I think that...
Really?
Yeah, that describes me pretty well. I'm not sure about the sours and ghosts. Some of them are a bit weird, but generally speaking, I'll drink anything.
You've got a yellow one over there. This one's an orange can. What's the yellow one?
This is the Zesty Pale Ale.
Oh, interesting. And how do you rate that? Are you a fan of the pales?
I think I prefer the Tropical Haze.
Yeah, I do like the tropical stuff too.
I mean, it'd be really good if it was warm, but it's not. It's raining and
Really? Pales are supposed to be warm.
No, they're weather, not the beer. Jesus.
Oh, that went over my head there. That went right over my head there. I was like, wait, what? Hold on a sec.
I'm about to say I'm not some kind of savage. What are you drinking there?
I've got a Mountain Goat Steam Ale.
Organic.
Yeah, all organic. Says an all-natural brewing process incorporates cool fermentation with a hint of wheat malt.
Alright then, you keep your secrets.
Yeah, well that's pretty much the Gandalf of beers. But no, I find it exceptionally refreshing. And from what I can tell, it's not that actually. It doesn't have that many carbohydrates in it. 4.5%. So anyway, we were talking about competitive video games, and you brought up a particular point about the influence of certain platforms.
Yeah, so on top of what we were talking about with the change in taking away that third party in competitive gaming, which is the person that provides the server. Now, don't get me wrong, the industry now around competitive gaming is way bigger.
It's enormous. But if I could just jump in here for a second, I realise that the platform by which it's hosted is far less important than the people hosting it. Yeah, a platform which is advertised is far less important than way back in the day with Internode hosting the service.
That's right, yeah. So, and also, it wasn't just that, but say you had a clan that was paying to use the server as a private server. That server popped up when people went to search for a game. The server popped up and it would have the clan's name on it.
Yeah.
So it was a brand as well. So
yeah.
And the other thing is this is probably still the case, but back then, a big part of competitive play was intimidation. So if you were known, if your name was something people associated with, I won't remember.
Clout.
Well, yeah, if you had a clout to your name, it didn't have to be that you had a good record when it came to competitive play. It could just be that you had a private server,
or that you're really aggressive,
and people remembered that when they went on your server, they got dominated, by people with your clan tag in their name. So that was enough to give someone a bit of clout, especially in a local area. Especially when we're in Perth and WA, where it was a pretty small scene. And if you went into a competitive game thinking that the people you were facing were godlike players, then you had very little chance of winning, because you were already anxious to start with, and then you'd probably overthink things and think they were going to do things that they probably hadn't thought of it, or you're too nervous about executing risky plays.
Well, do you think did Halo have any of that? I don't recall.
Halo's a run and gun.
They had clans though.
They did, but Halo's a different style of play. It's not as tactical. I mean, obviously it is tactical.
It's absolute chaos most of the time.
But it is, a lot of it is just getting behind someone with a sword and killing them, or whatever, sniping someone from across.
You've angered a whole lot of people by saying that. I bet.
I probably have, but I mean, when you compare it to the tactical nature of a game like Counter-Strike, and I'm not talking about pub Counter-Strike where people are just shooting each other.
Your best example here I think you need to use is Rainbow Six.
Yeah, I mean,
Rainbow Six by far
if you've played single-player Rainbow Six and you are on a hard difficulty and you understand that you actually need to have people in position at the right time, watching the right place and all that sort of stuff, then you understand that that's basically what both teams are attempting to do when you're in a competitive game of Counter-Strike. Yeah,
you got two teams using a certain tactic, and then your improvisation is the strategy.
That's right. Yeah. And one thing I'll say about CS:GO that I don't like about the competitive nature of CS:GO is the availability of the grenades they have.
Oh, really?
So you can choose stun grenades, and there's these basically, I can't remember what they're called, incendiaries. So you can chuck an incendiary grenade and literally lights up.
Burn up an entire area so they can't exist it.
And you can't walk over it. You can jump over it if you're really brave. But it basically blocks off an entire passageway. And that, for me, that actually drastically changes the way that, especially if you're going to start charging a bomb site or something.
Yeah.
If you can block off an entire passage, if you've got 3 people with incendiary grenades, You can block that passage.
Well, that was the whole.
Time.
Well, technically, the smoke grenade was essentially that.
Well, they still have smoke grenades, but the difference is you can walk right through a smoke grenade, you get hurt.
Yeah. No, but the point was, the moment you walked through, you had no idea what.
Yeah, you did. You could chuck a flash grenade through a smoke grenade.
Yeah.
And get a decent entrance. And maybe have a chance of breaking it. But with this injury, it's literally locked down. You can't actually. I mean, you could, like I said, you could jump over it if you're being brave, but you're going to catch on fire, and then good luck shooting anyone.
Yeah, good luck with that.
And I get that they added that, and they thought it was a necessary thing to add to the game to add a bit more tactical stuff to it. But I feel like that should be in the realm of the map building. And I don't.
What do you mean realm of map building?
Well, if you've got a map that's not balanced because you need to close off an exit, one team needs to be able to close an exit off, then you haven't made a very good map. And I get that what they've done is that the new maps, they've actually built into them, they often have more entrances into areas than what they classically would. So actually it's really useful to have an incendiary grenade. So the new maps probably are built pretty well to match with the newer style of play. But the classic maps, I think, are kind of...
There's a reason why they stood the test of time.
Yeah. I mean, I just feel like... I mean, I all I can say is when I play CSGO and I'm going to rush, up a...
Rush
Dust 2 is such a good example. I'm rushing short. I managed to get past the snipers in mid. And then, I run up the stairs and all of a sudden there's a incendiary grenade there. And I'm just okay, well,
I guess I'm going to go back.
Yeah, I guess I'm going mid. Like, there's just you just have no choice.
Yeah.
I mean, you can stay there and peek over the top of the box, and there's a bunch.
How much time do you spend playing CS:GO during the week?
Very little.
Very, very little.
I play more Source than I do Go.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I do too.
Yeah, so there's this deathmatch server.
Oh, yeah, the one where you infinitely respawn every time you die.
Or you just respawn straight away.
Yeah. What is it? Gun game, right?
It's not gun game, but...
okay. So to clarify, gun game is essentially, it's an increasingly... Every time you get a kill, essentially you consistently respawn every time you die, but every time you get a kill, you get a better gun. And eventually the end of the game is either you have to kill someone with a grenade or a knife.
So it's a grenade, then a knife.
Then a knife. And then the end, that's when the match ends. But if no one gets up to that point and there's no timer, it goes on infinitely. Never ends.
Yeah. So gun game, when it first came out, actually, when you got a kill, you would move on to the next level, but you didn't get the gun for the next level. So you could either get a knife kill to ascend to the next level.
Yeah. And you could bring someone down.
A knife kill also stole someone else's level.
Which is the biggest move
Or you could
ever.
actually find the gun that you need for the next level. So if you kill...
That's way harder.
If you kill someone that's a level above you, you can drop your gun and pick theirs up and then gain another level from their gun.
It'd be interesting if the guns had the levels on them.
Yeah, I'm not sure how you do that, but...
Yeah.
So they very quickly realised it was too slow. That game mode was too slow. So what they did is they made it so as soon as you kill someone, you just are automatically given the next gun.
When you think about it, this is essentially what Call of Duty did back in the day. They essentially took the kill streak idea and turned it into upgrades that weren't basically guns. They were UAVs and bomb drops and nukes eventually. And it's interesting that Call of Duty's multiplayer kind of... Because back before it was a World War II shooter, which it was originally, it was a pretty... I don't know, it was alright as a shooter, as a World War II shooter. I can't remember if it was that good or not.
Actually did.
There was Dave Defeat, which was far better on PC.
So Call of Duty 3, not Modern Warfare. I think
No. Way back in the day. Way back. Call of Duty, there's Call of Duty, then there was a couple of different expansions. We're talking the World War II genre, when they made way too many Call of Duty games.
I know what you're talking about.
Yeah. But yeah, no, I realised that there's a connection somewhere between the Counter-Strike gun game invention mod, the game type, and Call of Duty's multiplayer, where the kill streaks added to some sort of upgrade that you could get.
Yeah, I mean, quite possibly. I mean,
I don't know if they influenced each other or whether one was a copy of the other.
I'd say they would.
The
gun game was all about getting an insane deathmatch into Counter-Strike Source, which is normally a tactical game. And, you couldn't really do that I mean, but so the current deathmatch server I play is they've even added things where like if you kill someone, they drop a health pack and you can get healed, but they've actually increased your maximum HP to 200.
I've actually played that, but it slowly times down.
No, I don't think it's the same.
Oh, okay. Well, this one particular that I played was that your health slowly goes down from 100
so when you,
to 200 to 100.
So you start with 100 HP, so you can pick up a health pack and you'll get some HP, and you get a maximum of 200. If you get a knife kill, you get 75 HP. But there's no cap to the knife kill HP. So you can actually get an infinite amount of hit points by getting knife kills. Which I like that element of the game because it really adds... you can actually get really scary because if you...
You're literally walking around as...
I mean, I've got to the point where I think I had like 900 hit points. And I was just wading into the enemies holding a knife, just running at them.
You're the guy from Halloween, right? Just killing people with knives.
What's his name?
Just killing everyone and stealing their kills. Oh, yeah. No, different tangent.
Yeah, that was quite a tangent, but that's okay. So we were talking about the industry around pro gaming and how that's expanded. And what I would argue is it's been good for the industry in terms of getting players into it and getting people watching it and that sort of stuff. But I would argue it has not given us better players.
Really?
Or more creative styles of playing. Because the way I see it is actually created a culture where a lot of it is about money. It's about making money. So for pro players, there's a lot of money on the line when you get to those top echelons.
Well, can you give me an example? Because I know the StarCraft 2 team, the last championship, or it might have been 2017. I don't even know if they had a championship.
There was one this year.
There was one during COVID.
Sarah won it.
Interesting. Yeah. But it's like $1.5 million or something like that.
Oh, it's a lot of money.
What was the Fortnite championship? That was $4 or $5 million.
I don't follow Fortnite at all.
That was one guy. No teams, just one dude.
Yeah.
And keep in mind, Fortnite does not have dedicated servers. It's a peer-to-peer video game.
Yes, but when you play on LAN, that doesn't matter.
Oh yeah, agreed. But the point is that I mean, when you're at that level, everything's LAN. They're at 1 gigabit connections.
I'm glad you brought something like StarCraft 2 up because this is part of, I actually watch a lot of StarCraft 2 competitive games, and what I realise is there's a lot of YouTubers out there, and they probably have Twitch as well, and they've got a lot of subscribers. This has been the case for a long time because I remember.
How many are we talking? Like 10,000.
I remember when StarCraft 2 first came out, right? And I was watching some StarCraft 2 replays and stuff, and I discovered a YouTuber, and he was legit. I'm pretty sure. I could be wrong about this, but for a bit there, he was actually had the most subscribers. Like he had the most subscribers on YouTube, and he was doing StarCraft 2.
Was it in tutorials or something? Oh, okay.
It was just commentary on pro games.
Oh, okay.
And I mean, there's a lot of people in South Korea, and obviously it's a really popular game. I could be wrong about this, but I swear at the time, it was years ago now, I swear at the time of realising he was actually the most subscribed person, I was like, what the hell? Obviously it didn't last long. But, it just goes to show that something like YouTube actually has massive pull in that community. And anyway, I was watching this guy, and there's a guy named Loco. It's a good channel. But little did I know, he's actually a StarCraft 2 player himself. And he's not at the pro level, but he would like to be. So he's really highly ranked. And he does pretty well.
Is he gold or platinum?
Oh, he's platinum.
He's way above platinum, is he?
He's like in the, he's probably in the top 100 or something.
Oh, okay, yeah.
I think he's a Zerg player. And he plays all three, but it doesn't really matter. I could be wrong about being in the top 100. It might not be. But there is definitely, I know there's a player, there's a couple of players that are in that top echelon of players that win prize money and actually do well, that do YouTube videos, and they do pretty well out of that as well. So they're turning what used to be a profession only for people that won competitions into something where you don't actually have to win competitions to make money, because you can have a YouTube video, a Twitch video, a Twitch account, you can actually do tutorials for people, like paid tutorials.
Well,
so it's actually turning the player base into a business.
Well, it's interesting you mention that because this doesn't happen very often, but you'd be surprised how often people who do walkthroughs on YouTube, just playing video games, puzzle games generally. I remember Darksiders 2. I was playing through that the other day, and I couldn't get past this puzzle. I just could not think of what the solution was, and I looked online, and the video in particular was no commentary. It was just a guy playing the game. He went directly to this with a bit of annotation, a bit of arrows and whatever, circles and highlights, and it was done. And I was like, oh, okay, that's how you solve the puzzle. And then I watched it for all of the minute that it lasted, and I looked down the bottom, it says 1.5 million views. And that was because obviously this puzzle wasn't very cleanly explained in the video game, so people just... And he had no intro, he had none of that crap, and he just had a link to Patreon at the bottom. And I was like, this guy's obviously genius.
Yeah.
So there's an entire industry there. I mean, it's the only art form you get punished for not being good at.
Yeah, well, Patreon's good for that sort of content because, I mean, most people would... If you know anything about YouTube, I think you have to have a video over 10 minutes or something to get any decent ad revenue out of it.
That's true.
And there's a lot of content creators out there that joke about the 10-minute thing, and they're just like, they've done 9 minutes and 30 seconds of content.
And then it's like, blah, blah, blah.
Looking at their watch, like, just going to wait to that 10-minute mark. And they just stand there staring at the camera for 30 seconds or something. There's the meme of, what's his name, Davey504, where he does therapy time. At the end, he's like...
Don't know any of this. Davey504 and therapy time.
Yeah,
please explain.
It's great. If you haven't seen it, it's really good.
All right, I shall look it up.
So he's a bass player, and it's literally just dropping memes the entire time. Just playing memes on bass.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's like meme
So he's
songs.
literally a meme lord.
He's a meme lord with a bass guitar.
Speaking of which, that's a great topic for our next episode. We'll jump on
we
the
can do
memes.
memes.
Do the memes. That would be really
Happy
good.
to do that.
That'd be awesome.
I've got some Counter-Strike memes if you want to do that.
Yeah, go on.
So you've got Bust Mid.
Bust Mid.
Bust Mid. Yeah, that's a good meme.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
That's all I got.
that's it for the moment.
Yeah.
There is no throw your weapon at the enemy.
No, I'm sure there are other memes. I just can't think of them. But Bust Mid for me was actually something that, for some reason, caught on.
It did totally make sense.
Actually caught on.
Yeah, it's just like everyone go mid. We're gonna bust it out.
Bust Mid, guys.
Yeah, just smash it out. I bet you it almost always works whenever you say it.
It actually did, and that was why. That was why it was such a good meme because you'd be in a competitive game and you'd be lost to do, you'd be losing, and you've run out of money and your eco's just failed, and you finally bought some guns and then you failed that round as well. You just
it's like, screw it. Everyone grab their pistols and go at it.
Everyone buy a deagle and Bust Mid or just whatever.
Just grenades.
Yeah, all you do is chuck a couple of flashes over and then just go in mid and all of a sudden you've won the game and you're like, how did that?
It's interesting because we are both, I'm mid-30s and you're just 30s. But the point about it is that we're reminiscing about video games as they used to be. And it used to be a very interesting industry. Because do you remember that old All-Seeing Eye program from early 2000s?
Yeah, I do. Actually found servers for you.
Yeah, found servers. But the thing about it was the All-Seeing Eye program was essentially a program where you would boot it up and you would pick the video game without launching the video game. And you could just have a look at every single server that was online, and you could have a look at the players that were in the server at the time.
Yeah, that's true.
And then it would launch the game for you and join the server, and you'd play the game. And it's interesting because I don't think that's a very interesting idea and design choice. Because can you imagine if PlayStation came out with that, where it's just like, hey, this is what your friends are playing. I mean, Steam eventually put that into its overlay of, hey, this person's playing this.
Yeah.
And PlayStation started doing it and Xbox did it. But yeah, no, the point is that you could just jump into a game not even by looking at the game or starting a game or looking for a server. You essentially just went, hey, what's Thingo doing?
Yeah.
And then you jump straight in.
Well, it wasn't even just friends. We were all saying, you could...
Yeah, no, that's true.
You could just
search. You just pick the guy that you hated that week and follow him around.
You actually could, yeah. And you could search for players and stuff. If my memory serves, you could just pick a game and just go find me some servers. And then you could click on that server and tell you who was playing in that server. And you wouldn't have to launch the game.
Yeah.
It just used all the hardware.
It's just interesting how the world's gone from... that's convenience. That's what happens. People pay for the convenience. Therefore, technology moves towards and tries to come up with the convenience of solving it. And that's just how technology is used these days. It's about the efficiency of not having to wait and none of that crap.
The other thing is that microtransactions. To go back to the sort of central point of this whole conversation. Microtransactions was a giant step in the direction of the ultimate commercialization of gaming. So it was like, we've decided that all game playing all the time is going to be about us making money. And that's just the way the industry went. And don't get me started on game journalism. It's basically the same thing. It was game journalism is going to be about us making money all the time. For every single article that is written or everything, that was all about
I totally agree with you.
Maximum amount of money out of the thing. It wasn't about love of games.
It was about hyper controversy.
It was, find the controversy and exploit it, make as much money, get as many clicks as you can. It's all about ad revenue. And so this whole conversation also ties into the death of the free internet. It's kind of the same thing. And I guess at the core of the change in the gaming culture, and I don't mean the culture of gamers, because that really hasn't changed that much, but the culture of the corporate structure surrounding games, that has changed drastically, and so has the corporate structure around the internet. Because if you look at who created those early games that we love so much, and Half-Life and Counter-Strike and Diablo 2 and even Diablo 1, StarCraft to an extent, the early Blizzard games. Those guys were just nerds making some great games. That's all they were doing. And
that was every website in 1993.
And they were hoping that they could make some good content and maybe make some money out of it. But it wasn't really about making a game. They weren't trying to create empires, but now they are empires, and all they're trying to do is exploit to the maximum amount, as much money as they can out of their follower base. And it's even got to the point where the players are doing the same thing.
Have you heard of the term whale?
Like the animal?
Yes, of course. But no, there's a term in terms of marketing, gaming marketing. In my research that I put into this, there's quite a few YouTubers that I could recommend who look this up. But essentially, there's this idea in marketing when it comes to microtransactions and when Candy Crush and by far, those types of microtransaction casual games are based around whales, which are people who spend hundreds of thousands of dollars on a single video game and little microtransactions. They want to get that. It started with Farmville, as far as I'm concerned, or as far as I know, where people were like, "Oh yeah, I just want to harvest this crop now. Yeah, I'll pay 30 cents to do that." They're done. Yeah. And those people essentially it became an addiction to them, where they spent so much money that they went straight into debt, and it went on from there. And the whales are essentially what the marketing teams essentially chase after. If you can get 1,000 whales on one game, essentially you have paid for 1 million people's microtransactions. In the time that they spend and the money that they spend, you'd have to get 1 million other people to just spend on one purchase. And that's the point, is that you're after the whales, the ones that make money.
So it's a bit like gambling, similar.
It's exactly like gambling.
Because it's exactly there's a very small percentage of gamblers that will spend way more money than anyone else that went to the casino that day.
That's exactly the point. Is essentially they try to just catch those big fish
Yeah.
And that's why they're called a whale, because it's almost impossible to drag them.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. So that's the point that they're trying to develop those games for. And sadly, it's a mixture of both the competitive gaming multiplayer scene and the single player video game.
Yeah, it's in both worlds.
It is. I agree with you that the corporate side of gaming has definitely ruined and derailed it. But on the other side of things, if you take a step back and you have a look at the community itself, there's an exceptionally good amount of indie video games which are exploding, and they have no microtransactions, and they're all very well dedicated to their community, and their audience loves them. You just don't hear about them because they're never advertised. They're indie. Yeah. They're indie games, you know. Yeah. But you can name quite a few of them. You know, Hollow Knight is probably the most popular example, which is the Dark Souls platformer game. Yeah. Shovel Knight is another one. You know, that sort of thing. So,
I guess it's actually, I'm glad you brought that side of things up, because that's actually how I used to feel about the gaming community in general. So I used to think about the internet in general and the community around gaming as all in that same vein of, you know, even the games that were quite popular, before they were popular, they were just a guy and a team that made a really good game. That's pretty good. They just made a really good game and sold it once, and that was the end of it.
And they made the art.
And then they were like, "All right, let's try and make a second one and make some more money." You know, like that actually worked pretty well. But the culture around it was really honest, and they were ingrained in that culture. And it was the same thing with you know, games forums. I remember when forums were a big thing. I mean, now everyone.
Oh yeah, I remember
subreddits and YouTube video.
I don't have an issue with subreddits. Subreddits.
I don't, but they've taken up the mantle that was left behind with the death of the forum.
Well, it is a bit sad, but yeah, no, I totally agree with you in that respect. That the corporate side of things has taken over the internet. It's taken over Reddit and that sort of thing. And that's a different discussion, kind of entirely. But as for that corporate side of things, you can't do much about that except for go back to pennyarcade.com. Yeah. If you want to support these people, if you want to support those sort of institutions, go back to them and literally type it out on your phone or your keyboard, or if you even have a keyboard computer anymore. Most people, I don't think, even have a desktop or a laptop anymore.
And I guess that is the thing. Buy indie games and play them because they're great.
And the indie games, most of them run on your phone.
Yeah,
buy them.
They're fine. You know,
I mean, they might not be
cheap.
Yeah, they're cheap, but I wouldn't pay more than $20 for some of them.
No, but you don't have to a lot of the time.
Although, like Super Ghouls and Ghosts on the Super Nintendo, we paid $60 for that way back in the day.
Oh, that was a good game.
Yeah,
we never finished it.
Yeah, that's true. We didn't finish it. We played that game all the way to the end of the game on easy, and then we defeated the bad guy. And what did he say?
Start fresh because it's too easy.
Start fresh. Because this ain't the real game yet.
Yeah, this isn't the real game.
At that point, we just went, well, F you.
Well, that was that prepared me for Diablo, didn't it? I think I finished the game, no.
Yeah. And Dark Souls kind of did that. They took the ending of the game and just put it in every boss, and it's just like, you have died. Yeah, that's it. Go back and just try it again. That's another thing, though. Those types of games, Japanese games, which is interesting, don't have microtransactions.
Yeah, because they still respect the original art form of creating the game for the sake of the game. Do you think it is? Well, yeah, no, I mean, look at me.
I just think that it's marketing. I think once the industry realised it could make, you know, however many $1 billion a year, more than they could do sports and more than they could do movies, they just went, you know, this is where we need to be. And, you know, I agree with a lot of people. I mean, you look at movies these days, and you can just tell almost all of them have been made by a corporate block of people sitting at a desk.
Oh, yeah.
We need this, and we need this, and we need this, and we need to hit these heartstrings, and they just shovel that crap out.
Like the comparison I made earlier about music, you know, it's a very similar thing. Like, even artists that...
I don't even think that they think about it. I think they just get one corporate guy to go, hey, can you make this track for this ad? And then it's this soulless, completely heartless, just backing track that's just kind of a little bit inspirational.
Like pop music, it's very similar. And I mean, I can, like, when you hear something, this is a really good example. Like, I don't really listen to rap, but I like Wu-Tang.
It's funny you mention that because I recently just started playing Control. And have you played Control? Have you ever heard of it?
No, I have no idea what that is.
Okay, it's essentially... Okay, have you ever heard of the SCP Foundation? We were talking... This is funny because... You haven't heard of it? Okay.
I feel like
you
I've
might
seen
have
it somewhere, but I have no idea.
Essentially, it's... You were talking about the birth and the greatest parts about the internet were a community-driven sort of, universes, I guess, in a way. But the SCP Sound Foundation is literally a website. A fan-made website about essentially a bunch of entities and objects that have supernatural and multi-dimensional abilities and attributes. And so SCP Foundation is a bunch of fan-made profiles about a bunch of objects with multi-dimensional... And most of the time, it's fucking terrifying. Absolutely terrifying. There's one particular one which happens to be very, very popular. I think it's SCP-1067 or something. Essentially, it's an alligator that can't die, and so they need to constantly keep acid on it. It talks to people and makes them jump into its mouth, and I can't remember the details, but yeah, it's absolutely terrifying. Well, Control is essentially the video game, where you play a main character who jumps into... She's trying to find her brother, and she jumps into a corporate building that no one can find from the outside unless they're able to look for it. They know its existence or something to that effect. Oh. Essentially, you walk in and the whole place is being completely taken over by an infection. People are floating in the air and they're moaning about crazy crap, and you don't have any idea. And essentially, you get a whole bunch of levitation, telekinesis, mind control abilities, all psychological abilities. They're very cool. But essentially, you get a gun that transforms with nanotechnology and psychic abilities. It's a very, very cool game. But it's a unique game. But I recently played through a level of it where you have to go through a maze, and you have to... a transforming maze at the same time that you have to do combat with a whole bunch of people. And the first character that you come across in the video game is the janitor. The janitor speaks in kind of partial gibberish and partial another language and partial English. So you don't really understand him too much. But you get through the game and he goes, "Oh, you want to go to this place? You must put the headphones on your facey thingy." And so you put your headphones on and you start listening to his music, and then this amazing track came on, which I had never heard before, that completely and utterly just dominated the action scene, because I'm running through this maze at the same time it's transforming, and people are firing rockets at me, and I'm grabbing them in midair and throwing them back at them, and I'm pulling guys into the air, and I'm grabbing stones off the wall and smashing them together. It was just absolutely brilliant, like really, really adrenaline pumping, great music. And I was like, why don't more video games have this, where adrenaline pumping music completely and utterly eclipses you and drags you into the immersion? Doom Eternal did that for me as well, but it's not as much as Control, though.
I was actually just about to say Doom is definitely one of those. Well, you know what? There's nothing better than an action scene with a great soundtrack. And if you're making the action happen, it's even better.
Agreed. Well, I mean, by far, I think the greatest action scene of all time is the lobby scene from The Matrix.
Yeah, and it's
Now it's the propeller heads.
That's right.
But not many people know of them. So, but yeah, nonetheless, it's a brilliant bass track. It's very simple, but it's brilliant. But yeah, no, agreed. Unless when you're in control of it, you control the tempo, which is the best part about it. You know. And Doom has a tempo that's so just blast beat fast that it doesn't matter whether you're controlling it or not. You can just stand there You could just stand there and just enjoy this music. It didn't matter if you were ripping demons to pieces or not. You know?
Yeah.
But I mean, there's some other good, really iconic games. But generally, I find that music in video games completely lacking these generations. Last two generations, at least.
Yeah. I'm trying to remember. I really enjoyed the new God of War.
I haven't played it. The God of War 4.
It's just called God
of
of War.
War. Yeah, God of War.
Yeah.
Did you play that? Did you finish
Oh,
it?
yeah.
I had an argument with a guy at the pub the other day who said that was a really good movie. It's a shit game.
Well, it's one of those
Yeah.
games it's really just an interactive movie. It's like you're playing the part of the main character of a film that's been turned into a game. But that's actually not if you're a gamer like I am, then just playing.
What's a gamer? Can you clarify
what I mean
for a
is,
second?
okay, so you've got people that will play a game and they'll enjoy it, and they just do the obvious, like they follow the obvious path.
They don't explore upstairs or downstairs or have a look around.
So okay, really good example. The best way
they follow the waypoint.
Yeah.
That's it. Yeah, waypoint boy.
Yeah. So the best way to put this as well for me, I am the kind of guy when I play Diablo 2, by myself, not when I'm playing with
You
other
still play that though?
Yeah, of course I do. If I play it by myself, single player, I explore every single corner of the map. So well, they call it a full clear. So I full clear every map that I enter on Diablo 2. And partially there's a few reasons why I do that. One is because it's that many times I've found some random chest in the corner of a thing and like a unique item's dropped out or the exact gem I need or a rune or something. And I'm like, well, thank fuck I came up here, even though I didn't have to. And the other reason is it means you don't have to grind. If you full clear every map in Diablo 2,
you're going to be overpowered.
You don't ever have to go back.
Oh, okay, yep.
Because you'll gear up and you'll get enough gold, and you'll have enough XP if you full clear everything. Now it seems it is kind of counterintuitive because what you could do is you could just, especially in the first act or something, you could get to.
You can just rush through that, and then the rest of the game.
You can get the Cold Plains Waypoint, which is the second area, and then go and do I think it's called the cave or something. You can't
do that. I mean, how many times have you played through that game? 10?
No, more
12?
Than that. Yeah, a lot.
You can't do that every time, right?
If I'm playing single player, I play hardcore and I full clear everything.
Wow.
That's just how I play it. It's not, and I don't do that when I play with other people because they're just like, what the fuck?
And what's your chosen class? Do you pick the same class every time?
No, of course
you
not.
just jump between them?
I say the most played class is Necromancer, second to that.
Well, that's the other thing. Like, if I bring up Borderlands to you right now, have you played Borderlands? Any of them?
Yeah, I did play Borderlands a little bit, but not in any great detail.
Because there are people who play Borderlands and they've got like freaking 2,500 hours on the bloody thing. And I'm going, how? It's not.
Sometimes people just leave it on the home screen or something.
Oh, no, it's possible. I mean, I have, what was it, something like 8,000 hours combined between Fallout 4, Fallout New Vegas, and Skyrim.
Yeah.
8,000 hours. I mean, do you know how many hours there are in a year?
I actually don't know.
8,000.
So you've played 8,000 hours.
I have literally played a whole entire year, 24
Skyrim.
hours a day, 7 days a week of Skyrim, Fallout New Vegas. That's because of video game mods.
Yeah, so
there's a point where you get to those games and you're going, I am bored of this game mechanic. What is out there that can improve it? Or what is out there that can expand upon it? You know what I mean? You can go in there and you can spend thousands and thousands of hours.
You know what game we probably have a lot of hours on, but that would never be recorded?
Perfect Dark.
No, SimCity.
Yeah, no, that's true.
But do you know why?
Why?
Because we left it on for weeks on end.
Yeah.
Accumulating money.
I do remember that. I remember that. We spent that Super Nintendo was the bomb. That little thing was a nuclear reactor.
It just kept going.
And then someone kicked it and then lost our save file.
Yeah, and then you know, Mum would come up and be like, "What are you doing?" and unplug it or something. Like, no! Oh, that game was...
We would occasionally come in and save it.
It was like a month and a half old. That's so much money.
Yeah, no, I remember that. And then we got bored eventually and just started summoning Godzilla.
Yeah, so I can't... Yeah, it was natural disasters.
Have you played Cities Skylines?
No, I've seen it.
It's basically SimCity, but it's way better. Like, you can name the streets and you can determine what the tolls are on each street.
Yeah, right.
Like, it's insane level of detail. And you could do whatever the hell you want in that game. You can launch spaceships. That's the level of that game. It's incredible. I played it for quite a while. I'm trying to make a complete carbon copy blueprint stage of Perth. I tried to make it, like, literally, I put it in creative mode, so you have limited money, and bulldozed the Swan River out, and pulled it all that. It did not work. It got traffic jams all the time.
Better off with Minecraft, right?
Yeah, no, it's interesting that, because there are so many good games lately, but I don't, I don't understand these simulation games. I understand them, but I don't get them.
So I totally missed your traffic jams joke. That was fucking awesome. That was really good.
It's still, yeah. No matter how many lanes I put in the Narrows Tunnel, we always end up with some traffic jam. You're on a 9-lane highway and you still have idiot morons.
It's just Perth drivers, man.
Yeah, it's just Perth
drivers.
Your fault. Yeah, no, it's not my fault. I'll convince myself with that.
Something to do with city design.
But these days you have like truck driver simulator, or you have farm simulator, or something like that. And I tried the farming simulator game.
Oh, soon it'll be like masturbation simulator.
No. I think there actually is a waifu simulator.
Oh yeah, but the dating sims have been around forever.
Yeah, no, that's true. But no, this one is like there's even a, I kid you not, there's a LAN cafe simulator. where you run a business that no longer exists, that no longer anyone's willing to pay for.
Oh, there's one in Joondalup. That's still there.
What?
Yeah, where GC used to be.
No, there isn't. You have to be kidding me.
Well, I walked past it. It's probably not open at the moment because of COVID, but
no.
November. I walked past it. There was a LAN cafe.
No, it's not anymore. I went back there. I went there very recently.
Oh,
no,
okay.
It's like a health food store now.
Alright, good.
Yeah. No, it's no longer a LAN cafe, which I used to work at. It is now something else entirely. But yeah, no, there's all these simulator games, and they do pretty well on Twitch apparently.
Yeah.
There's even PC Building Simulator and Mechanic Simulator. Car Mechanic Simulator is actually really good. I bought that. Bought that for $2. And funnily enough, I've learnt quite a bit about cars playing it. It's really good.
That's pretty good.
Yeah, no, dead set.
I will say, I've played a lot of Counter-Strike. I have not learnt anything
about guns,
counter-terrorism, or disarming bombs, or operating weapons, or I don't know anything about any of that.
Well, thanks to Farming Simulator, I don't know what pigs eat and what cows eat.
Pigs eat fucking anything.
Yes, but they need a mixture of certain things every now and then, that sort of thing.
Yeah, right.
But yeah, no. Anyway, we'll get on to this to now. What have you been up to lately? What have you been getting into? What are you really enjoying?
Okay.
So we'll split this into different categories. So we'll go with movies, TV shows, video games, and music. So what do you got for movies?
Okay, movies. What do we watch recently?
There's not much out there 2020, really. But
you know what? Movies have been really disappointing. Here's one. I recently watched The Hobbit Extended Edition.
Oh, yeah?
And, say what you want about The Hobbit. It's not perfect. But I actually enjoyed it. It was entertaining. And I enjoyed The Hobbit the first time around. We watched it. Were you there? I'm not sure. I went to see it 3D at the cinema, and I think it was the second movie really blew me away with the intro. Like you're in Bree and you're walking down. The camera is moving down the street.
I was just going to say that Gandalf meets up with Thingo and it's a prequel.
Yeah, it's like a prequel.
It's so good.
Oh my god, that scene is amazing. Like, I actually think... I mean, people talk about 3D and how things come out of the screen. I actually think that scene in that movie is the best 3D scene ever shot. Because it actually felt like I was walking down the streets of Bree. Like, it's like nothing I've ever seen in a film.
You want to know something that's interesting? I heard... I looked up the YouTube clip itself to rewatch it and show it to someone.
Do you have a 3D monitor?
No, but the funniest part about this is that YouTube is able to do 60 frames per second, 120 frames per second.
Yeah.
And I downloaded the 48 frames per second part of the movie, the entire movie itself, the second movie, at 48 frames per second. It works so much better. It looks realistic as hell, and it doesn't have that washed out thing about it.
Yeah.
Turns out that scene was the first scene that Peter Jackson recorded for fucking The Hobbit.
Oh, okay.
Out of all the movies.
Yeah,
he did that scene first.
Yeah.
He did apparently he does his movies in chronological order at times, and then realizes, hey, this set would be really good for this scene.
Yeah, okay.
Sort of thing. But yeah, no, apparently that was the first scene, and he started that in the same set, obviously, as from Lord of the Rings. Went back to the same set that he did
for
before.
Bree, of course. Yeah. It does look exaccly the same.
It is a bit overacted, I find, but yeah, nonetheless.
When they actually get into what's that place called? Is it the Prancing Pony? No, whatever the pub is.
Prancing Pony. No, Prancing Pony. Yeah, that sounds exactly right.
Yeah, that scene is a little bit overacted. I agree with that. I mean, I think it's meant to be reminiscent of the Aragorn scene in Fellowship of the Ring.
Yeah, but Aragorn's scene is freaking genius in terms of. I just think.
Well, that's how it reads. Like in the book, it reads like this mysterious guy in the darkness, smoking a pipe, looking menacing, and that's exactly how it looks in the film. It's one of those few things about the film that they actually fucking nailed.
They should have just had Strider in every corner. Turns this guy's other cloak, dude. Turns this guy's other cloak, dude. This one's trying smoking a pipe. Yeah. The other one's sharpening his sword. just to mess with Dunderhill. What's his name? Oakenshield. Yeah, Oakenshield.
Yeah.
No, I don't mind. I downloaded the 48 frames per second video because I have a new screen, a curved screen. And I wanted to see what HDR looks like with all of it going at 48 frames. And I have to say, it's absolutely lovely. Some of the CGI is too smooth.
Yeah, too much. Yeah, I've seen that before. I
mean, that's excusable. But yeah, no, that's fair enough. So that was the best highlighted movie that you saw?
Honestly, I'm trying to think what else. One of the movies I've watched recently is actually kind of tricky. Oh, Addams Family.
Oh, the original 90s movie.
There's two.
Holy crap, how good are they?
Really good.
They are.
And actually strangely relevant.
You know what blows my mind is like... yeah, no, they are strangely relevant.
They are strangely relevant. Just go back and watch them.
They are really well done. They're really well acted. They're really well directed. They've got great soundtracks.
I remember...
they've got good fucking dialogue, which is weird.
It wasn't that long ago that you told me that... the actor of
Gomez,
Uncle Fester, is the same actor that
Christopher Walken.
No, it's not Christopher Walken.
No, sorry, Christopher Lloyd.
Christopher Lloyd, who's Doc from
Back to the Future, and he didn't realise.
I was like, fuck off, and then I was like, hang on, oh my god, you're right. And then when I watched it again, I was like, how did I not realise this? It's like super obvious when you watch it again.
Yeah, no, but he is such a fantastic actor.
He's amazing. Yeah, he's really good.
But Gomez by far is the fucking scene stealer every time.
And in the second movie, it's I can't remember the actress's name.
I honestly haven't watched the second movie since the 90s, so I'll have to go back into that.
Oh, so she
funnily enough,
I can't remember. I have to look.
Don't the bad guys in the first movie become friends in the second movie?
So the bad guy, the bad guy is Uncle Fester in the first movie.
No. The aunt and uncle lawyer or whatever they were.
So the
they become friends. She starts dating. Oh, okay, yeah.
His
right.
wife, I can't remember her name.
She starts dating Uncle Ed or whatever it is.
Cousin Ed. And they have a little baby, which is super cute.
Just a hairy ball.
And I actually really like Cousin Ed because its voice is just like. And it's like drives this.
It's like Beaker from Sonny the Muppets.
It's like mini convertible. I swear it's like a rip-off of ZZ Top or something. It's really good though.
It's ZZ Top, but they went 100%.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, Addams Family definitely great. No modern movies are good. That's all I have to say.
Woof.
Is there any movie from 2020? I don't even know. Is that even a thing?
There are a few out there. I haven't watched many of them, but I watched Jojo Rabbit the other day.
Right.
Have you heard of Jojo Rabbit?
No.
Okay. Essentially, the premise is the main character is a little kid during the last couple of months of World War II. And he's an enormous Hitler fanaticist. And his mother's played by Scarlett Johansson.
Okay.
And she is... I'm not going to ruin it, but let's just say she doesn't agree with him too much with his fanaticism. And he's like 8 years old or something like that. 10, something like that.
Okay.
Yeah. And he's like this little Nazi running around with a sword and that sort of shit. And I'm pretty certain the director, and correct me if I'm wrong here, Taika Waititi, the guy who did Thor Ragnarok,
Oh, okay.
plays Hitler. And he is absolutely freaking hilarious. It's a New Zealander black man playing Hitler, and it just so works for some reason. He's in whiteface and everything else. He looks like Hitler, but yeah, it is absolutely fantastically great work. It's really well done. Great comedy movie. There's a really sad part in it though. But otherwise, the movie's great, fantastic.
Okay.
Like it's a light-hearted war movie, which is weird.
Yeah,
light-hearted war movie
weird,
comedy. I recently I think that was released 2019 or 2018.
Yeah.
So let's go way back. The other movie that I first time watched was 12 Angry Men from 1957.
Oh,
I can remember 1957, 1967. I think it was black and white movie. And it's set essentially in one room with 12 men, and they're all method actors. Like, they're really good actors, and they're a bunch of guys on jury duty trying to work out a murder.
Right.
And it's an incredible piece of storytelling. It's very well directed. The soundtrack didn't stand out too much to me, to be honest, but for the most part the dialogue is just perfection. It's all these men sound like they're realistic people. Like they could live today if people today had more class, maybe. But that's about it. Yeah.
Well, anyway, moving on, because honestly, there's not much going on in terms of movies.
No. Well, as for TV shows, what are you getting into?
I was talking to you before about Devilman Crybaby, which I didn't.
Which is anime on Netflix.
I enjoyed it because it was quite unique. Like it wasn't the same anime tropes that you get, especially with Netflix.
Are you certain about that? Because being a power fantasy is pretty big in anime. That's shonen anime, but this is certainly not a shonen.
It's not shonen
teenage
at all.
anime.
So it looks like a shonen.
Yeah,
so when
it totally does.
So when you first watch it, you're like, "Oh, it's a shonen," you know. But then you're like, "This is not fucking shonen. This is some sort of."
It's brutal.
It's just horrific.
Full of sex and gore and violence.
Oh yeah, it's just
monsters.
gore. Yeah, but the style of animation is such that it's not. Yeah, it's gory, but it's not overly realistic. So it's like it's not like a gore where it's not like Berserk gore. Where it's actually like,
realistic as shit, it's
kind of disgusting,
just gross
because it's like, ugh, that looks too real. No, it's and especially like the animation isn't terrible all the time, but when it gets gruesome, it gets worse. It gets more
I totally got that from the first episode.
Cartoony, So it's a bad way of putting it, but it's...
No, I totally get it. It accentuates the horrific sides of it.
Yeah. So the demonic part of the anime sort of stretches more into that sort of more sloppy style of animation.
Yeah. But it's free flowing at the same time,
it's
which is what
free,
I respect about it.
And
That's
it's really
crazy.
and it's really dumb as well, because like there's
What, the
things
plot,
like well, yes.
but yes.
I actually meant the animation style is really dumb with things like when they run, because the whole thing is like they're all track runners. So it follows the story of a bunch of teenage truck runners that are getting into hardcore drugs, and demons are overtaking their bodies and whatever. So it's not for the lighthearted at all.
I'm sorry, but they all my problem with anime is they always need to drag it back to the high school for some reason. That part really annoys me.
Yeah, they're trying to appeal to something.
I know. But go ahead.
They've definitely got some high school obsession going on. So yeah. Anyway, the ending. I didn't like the ending, but apparently it was true to the manga, and apparently there is actually a point to the ending being the way it is. It's like a biblical reference.
Do you think? Okay.
So yeah, it actually made sense I kind of made sense of it, but I was talking to my workmate, and he'd watched it as well, and he told me before I'd finished it, he goes, "I didn't like the ending. I thought it was stupid." And then he's like, he goes, "I'm not saying it's a bad ending. I just thought it was a bit stupid." And then I watched it, and I was like, "I totally understand what you're saying." I was like, "Yeah, I completely agree."
Yeah, that was.
It's like, okay, I get it, but it just didn't.
Sort of thing, yeah.
It also didn't. There was no
resolution
or lesson or any of that. It was just like, oh, that's okay.
Oh, you got a blank message that
like,
you can put on the whiteboard.
It was like, I see what you've done here, basically. Where I'm like, okay, yeah, fair enough.
Any other shows? Or anything?
Watching Outlander, which I actually
haven't heard of this.
Didn't mind. I think the main actress is really good. Basically,
Is it sci-fi? What is it?
No, so it's a...
Oh wait, no, that's that medieval.
Yeah, so it's a...
Medieval
she's
show.
a nurse from, I think, World War One. Could be
yeah.
World War Two, I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Probably is World War Two, actually, the more I think about it. But anyway, she's gone on holiday with her husband in Scotland, and they're both English.
Mm-hmm.
And they go just before Halloween, which is obviously... Halloween's obviously adapted from a Scottish festival. God knows if I can remember what it's called.
But it used to be a pagan...
Yeah, it was a pagan thing. It was a pagan Scottish thing.
So go ahead.
And they come across some druids in the forest doing some weird ritual or whatever. Long story short, something happens to her, and then all of a sudden you've got the English versus the Scots in I think it's set in the 1700s or something.
Mm-hmm.
And she's an English woman amongst Scottish Highlanders that are resisting English control. And it's actually super interesting.
It's time travel.
Yeah. So I mean, that's not really a major spoiler. Like, if you haven't, there's fucking like 5 seasons or 4 seasons or something. So
damn.
If you haven't watched it, it happens in the first episode. So
it's a good thing they get to the chase. They cut to the chase.
It's not a massive spoiler to say the time travel thing, because it happens literally in the first episode, and that's the entire premise of the. But I won't go over how she gets there or why she was picked to go back in time. Even if she was picked, it was just an accident or whatever. And none of that stuff really matters. That's all to be discovered.
Spoilers.
Yeah, so that's all. That could be potential spoilers, but yeah, it's super interesting. And her husband's ancestor lives in that time, which is why part of the reason they went there was to discover more about his ancestor. So she bumps into him. There's all sorts of interesting interactions.
Cool.
Because they look really
similar. Is it a drama series or is it more sci-fi? What is it?
I would call it drama primarily, but it has this real sharp edge of like sort of brutal medieval combat.
Oh, okay.
So it has a little bit of like guerrilla warfare and political stuff, like sort of embedded in it, which is really like, I love that shit.
Yeah, it's Game of Thrones with the action.
It's actually more like Braveheart.
Oh, really? Oh, well, that makes sense.
But without the war.
Yeah.
Open warfare, because it's obviously not set.
Because you mentioned Outlander. I started remembering that movie with Sean Connery from like.
It's called Highlander.
No. It's an Outlander movie, I think, if I'm recalling correctly. No. And he's on Mars. Sean Connery.
No, that's. Anything about the Scottish?
No. It's a different movie.
Oh, okay.
Sean Connery did a lot of movies. But yeah, nonetheless, as for TV shows that I'm into at the moment, I'm really loving The Boys.
Oh,
The Boys
you mentioned before.
Absolutely incredible show. That's very well written, and you have no idea what the hell is happening, or what's going to happen. So you at the time you're sitting at the edge of your seat, and it's got a few kind of well-known actors in it. You'll definitely recognise Judge Dredd from the Dredd movie. Carl Urban. He plays essentially the main character.
The legend.
Yeah, and he walks around as this Australian or British guy who just says the C word a hell of a lot more than everyone else needs to. And so he's, it's very well done. But essentially it's set in a world where if superheroes were real.
Yeah.
And so they're all corporatized, they live all in the same building. They their entire lives entirely scheduled around movies and making marketing and advertising, Pop-Tarts and all that sort of crap. But at the same time, they're completely immune from real responsibility.
Yep.
And so when they make mistakes, the corporation that supports them
under the rug.
Just sweeps his people under the rug. And so the main characters that you meet, Huey and other characters, like the one character is called Mother's Milk, and he's like this 6'2", very muscular man who's ex-special forces, just like Carl Urban is. But it's incredibly well put together, incredibly well written. It's funny. It's got a great plot line. You'll enjoy it. There'll be one character that you'll fall in love with. They have a Batman in this series, which is completely mute. He doesn't say a word, and he's called Black Noir. And it's really quite funny because
we have an IT crowd moment. Black means noir.
All right then.
IT.
No idea what the reference was. I'm
IT
sorry.
crowd.
I need. So anyway, there's this moment in The Boys season 1 where one character picks up a baby and cuts another 2 men in half with the baby's laser eyes.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so it's an exceptionally well written, completely all over the place show. It's actually like a TV show, but I have to warn you, it is ridiculously violent. It is so violent. People get their faces ripped off. You get arms put in other people's faces. You're dealing with superheroes who are legitimately gods.
That sounds right up my alley.
Yeah, it's quite interesting. As for other TV shows, I've been trying to finish One Piece off at the moment as well.
Good luck, mate.
And I've been watching The Expanse, which I haven't delved into lately. But yeah,
someone told me to watch that, but I just have never got around to it.
It's interesting. It's people tell me it's Star Trek. What Star Trek should have been, essentially. The new Star Trek and everything should have been.
Have you seen The Orville?
I have not, but yeah.
It's actually legitimately good.
Oh, okay.
I mean, it obviously reeks of...
what's his face?
I
mean, he's starring in it. You can't get away from that.
It's not just the fact that he's starring in it. It's like, it's clearly written by him as well. It just reeks of Family Guy. But yeah, so I feel like the Orville, even though it's somewhat terrible in terms of comedy, it actually is. It feels truer to Star Trek than the new Star Trek does.
Interesting. That does it have like a Picard character who ties it all together, or
no? It's not. But it's not Picard. It's original series style of like.
Oh, okay. So the original.
Yeah, it's the idiot captain that somehow manages to wing his way through shit, even though he is clearly...
Does he talk like William Shatner as well?
He doesn't. Well, a couple of times, maybe.
There's something on the wind.
It's just the thing is, like, so the least capable member of the crew somehow is leading them. It's like, that's kind of the whole thing with the Orville, which is...
Wow, so it's more like a parody than it is a...
Well, it's meant to be. The whole point is that it's a parody of the original series of Star Trek. So
interesting. Okay, cool. Yeah, and I've been watching The Expanse as well, so I've been enjoying that. It's got some really good ideas about it, and there doesn't seem to be too much like character drama. I cannot stand character drama in some of these shows, but yeah. Anyway, what have you been up to in terms of video games? What have you been playing?
So I have been playing...
Any new ones?
Let me think. So I've recently been getting back into Dota 2 because some other people have been playing it. It's definitely not a new game, but it seems new to me because it's been so long since I played it. It's been a bit of a wake up call because I went to do something on a hero and realised the ability doesn't do what it used to, and then died. And I was like, oh shit, I should probably reacquaint myself with things.
But do you go to a YouTube channel for that, or do you experiment? What do you do?
Honestly, the best way to do it is to actually read the patch notes, and then from there, it's actually, I would say, to just play a whole bunch of games against bots and just play all of the new heroes and then just random. I mean, that would be... honestly, it's been a couple of years since I played it seriously, so it's like there's just certain things I don't even realise have been changed. And then when they happen, I'm like, what the fuck is that? Like I was laning against a Skeleton King, and he had like skeletal minions, and I was like,
oh wait, he's become the tree guy.
I was like, what the hell? Like, isn't it just, like, to me he's just a semi tanky like potential.
Yeah, now he's got
with reincarnate. Yeah, he's got a stun.
They do merge characters together at times.
Well, it's an attempt to balance every character. Same thing they've done with WoW to an extent. It's like make every character the same character, but just a slightly different version of the same character.
That brings me way back to World of Roguecraft. Do you remember that video?
Yeah.
It's like, what was it? Warriors are rock, rogues are scissors, and everything else is paper. We can kill everything else. Yeah, no, that reminds me of that.
Truth to that.
There's no way you can balance that many classes together.
It's not meant to be balanced. Like that's the thing. What I don't.
Well, that just means that every single patch you have a new balancing tree. That's the problem.
Yeah, I mean, like WoW, for example, a warrior with a pocket healer is probably the most devastating thing ever. A warrior by themselves is fucking pathetic. Like they're just useless. And you know, a rogue that pops out in a group of 10 and tries to kill someone is not going to be able to do anything.
Yeah, no, unless he picks the healer, at which point he cripples the group.
Even with a pocket healer. But one-on-one, a rogue is the strongest character in the game. And that's how it's meant to be. You know, Warlock is like the ultimate utility. It had literally everything under the sun.
Yeah, true.
But
Shaman technically.
Shaman's a similar thing, but it was never meant to be perfectly balanced, and the attempt to do it kind of ruins the game. And I feel like they've done that to some extent with Dota. Like Skeleton King was never a great carry character. Like it was never that great. But now he is. He actually is pretty good. Like I watched a level 11 Skeleton King tank my tower with no creeps. Like pretty much backdoored my tower at level 11. And I was like, and I wouldn't dare approach him. I was just like, I can't even stop this guy. Like,
this is the Rock.
I was like, what has this game become?
That's funny.
But you know, that's I guess.
Are you any other single player games?
Yeah.
We'll go back to you.
I'll think about it. You can.
I've been playing through Horizon Zero Dawn now that it released on PC. That's very, very good. That game is very good. I just realised I was explaining to a friend of mine, a mutual friend of ours, and he's like, "So what's it like?" And I'm like, "It's holy crap! It's The Witcher 3." Essentially, you are born into a world you have no understanding of. There's a whole bunch of creatures which you don't know any of the basics of or how to defeat them. You have an enormous amount of tools at your disposal. You build your character kind of a similar way, but the combat is way more complex than Witcher 3. Storytelling, it's more complex than Witcher 3. Way more complex because you have you play a character whose the primary weapon is a bow and arrow, with a selection of different types of arrows. You have a slingshot launcher, and you have cable tie harpoon gun, which ties them to the ground, and you also have traps that you can set up, as well as tripwire weapons as well. And so you have to work your way around defeating these giant robot dinosaurs and robot monsters. And each one of them will give you either a modification or more gear to use on the next monster.
Yeah.
And you can even tame some of them and ride them, which is really quite cool. And but you know, the world building is really well put together. It has some incredible visual detail, like really mind blowing. Although it doesn't have like the best part of Witcher 3, which is if you don't go to a barber, your beard grows enormous and your hair gets long. You know, that's by far the best part of Witcher 3. But you know, it's got a good level of detail to it. Nothing like Witcher 3, but I would say it's not quite as morality based quest lines.
Yeah.
But Witcher 3 has, where it teaches you there is grey areas, everything's this grey area. Yeah. In this game, you are the good guy and you're always the good guy. You know, you can't pick a bad choice really. But you can obviously pick what sort of response you give to certain moral questions. That will determine what sort of ending you get, from what I understand. But I'm just finished the single player, almost finished the single player campaign. I'm now on the DLC. And the DLC seems really quite cool. It's really good looking. They have a volcano with like lightning coming out of it at the same time, so it's really quite enjoyable. And just exploring the world is quite nice. It's quite relaxing, but at the same time, like if you want to take over an area, you have to sit down and plan.
Yeah.
You know, you can either go through stealth as well. You can just do everything stealth and take over one guy and get them all to fight each other or whatever. But yeah. No, it's very well done. Story's good. As for other games, I just finished a game called sorry, you go ahead on your one.
Yeah, no, I actually have one. So I will chuck this in briefly because it just reminded me. The game you were just describing, the only thing I could think of that was even anything close to it, so I'm trying to think of games that I've played recently, is actually our D&D campaign that we're playing at the moment. And what I've realised is the D&D for me, because we play it pretty much every Wednesday night, D&D has filled a hole that games have not been able to for me, because there is an incredible amount of depth about your character, and it's all has to be done by you, and it's interactive with the world. So obviously it depends how good your DM is.
But it's all about imagination.
Yeah, it is. You have to imagine every single facet of who your character is and why they're like that, and how you interact with the world and the other characters. And so it's kind of like the ultimate RPG. And so I don't really actually feel like I need to play an RPG, because I have D&D every week, which is just all of the RPG you could ever imagine. And it's obviously we play it all, like I use character sheets, so everything's done by hand. You know, it's pencils on paper. It's running things out and sharpening your pencil and writing things in and adding, plus 50 gold to your character sheet or whatever. You find some loot, you write it in, and it's like incredibly cerebral. Like in that way, it's like it really reinforces all of the accomplishments that you make. I feel like RPGs for me now, like you pick up a whole bunch of shit and you don't even know what you picked up.
You
just,
no, that's not
until you get back to your stash and you have to look through all that shit you just picked up, and you just there's usually a button you click and it just sells all the trash.
Yeah,
and it just
marked as trash.
Yeah, exactly, and it converts it into gold and it just goes
that
into
that should be a meme, by the way. Marked as trash.
Yeah, but there is no trash in D&D.
Yeah, no. Exactly.
Well, there could be if you want. If you really want to press your dungeon
but
master.
you examine it.
Yeah,
you spend all that time.
You're like,
have
they got any
is this integral to the plot?
Have they got any worthwhile armor? And he might be like, they got some leather armor on there. It's just worth whatever leather armor is worth, but it's used.
What level is your character now?
We're now at level 10, which is a bit of a milestone. But I'm a Circle of the Moon druid, so. I'm at the point where I'm really powerful, but I won't get much more powerful until sort of 17 plus when I can start.
What's the level cap?
20.
Yeah, thought so.
Once I can start casting, quite a few really high level spells, then I become.
You can shapeshift, right?
Yeah. So my strength at the moment comes from wild shape, and I can turn into a killer whale. I can turn into I can use 2 charges, which is my maximum per short rest, to turn into a fire elemental, a wind elemental.
Oh Jesus! Okay.
Earth elemental or a water elemental.
Because I'm thinking the World of Warcraft.
Yeah, they're strong. It's a really strong thing to be. So yeah, I am very strong, but this is about as strong as I'm going to be for a while.
Unless someone gives you a corrupted cane or something.
Yeah, well, I managed to get we put a bunch of gold together and we got some upgrades, and I got a staff of fire and stuff, which actually casts some fire spells that I don't usually have access to, which is nice.
Do you have a rogue with like crazy inspection skills?
We don't have a rogue. Our party is we've got a cleric, which is a pirate. Which is quite an interesting combination.
No, that totally makes sense.
But I think it's a cleric of the grave, or a tempest cleric. So it makes a spectral image of itself and stuff. So it actually matches a pirate really well. The whole like
you
ghost.
literally got pirate ghosts in a Dungeons and Dragons campaign.
Yeah, it works well. But yeah, so yeah, D&D for me is ticking a lot of gaming boxes, and I feel like I don't really need to put that much more time into. It's certainly like the ultimate single player game that you play.
Do you play it in your head?
Oh yeah, I do that all the time, and I'll be at work and I'll be like, oh, what about this spell? And I'll look something up and think about adding it to my spell list, and it's super engaging when you're not actually in the game.
Have you played a game called My Friend Pedro?
No, but someone was telling me about this.
It's a very strange game where you aim with the right click and you aim with the left click, and it's a side-scrolling shooter platform game, and you fire with both your arms at the same time. You lock on with that one, you lock on with that one, and you can control time, obviously. And you can coil up into a tiny little Metroid ball and roll around and shit in slow motion, and you can dodge bullets by just spinning. And it's a really quite interesting game because it's kind of like the 2D version of Super Hot. Have you heard of Super Hot?
Yeah.
You don't move. You don't time stands still. That's the Super Hot.
Yeah.
Well, in My Friend Pedro, everything stands at normal time. But then, it's a fucking tricky game, man. It has some really difficult puzzles in it.
So it's like a shooter game with puzzles.
Yeah. Well, it's more a style game. Like the trick and the real challenge to the game is to get as stylish as you can.
Yeah, right.
For the coolest shit you can think of. So in a way, it's like Just Cause. Just Cause games.
You're saying,
You're just like, I'll just hijack this car, drive it off a cliff into a fucking ravine where it will explode upon a plane that sets up a chain of explosions, and then I'll hook onto an F-18 fighter jet and just fly away.
Into the sunset.
It literally. I just realised right now that Fast and Furious became Just Cause. It just became the Just Cause.
I haven't
games.
seen the new movie, but apparently it's fucking ridiculous.
Oh, you're talking about speaking of it, Hobbs and Shaw.
Hobbs and Shaw. Yeah.
Oh my god, it is so actiony.
Of course it would be. I mean,
it's so actiony. It's not forgettable, which is what's strange about it.
Obviously, it's meant to be the crazy action spin-off. Like, that's the entire point of the movie, right?
It's not. It's more action, less racing.
That's what I mean. Yeah,
it's like less cars and more punches.
Less cars are action spin-off of the car movie.
Yes, and funnily enough, there's not as many guns as I thought there would be. You know.
Oh yeah, well, isn't the whole thing like the is he Samoan or something? And he goes back to
hometown. Essentially. And it's got Idris Elba as the bad guy.
His mum sold all his guns or something.
Yeah, pretty much. And Idris Elba is this super enhanced, partial cyborg.
Yeah,
with his cybernetic spine.
That's right,
and he's completely almost bulletproof, and it's a good movie. It's entertaining. If you want to turn your brain off for an hour and a half,
I wish they'd been that inventive for the Dark Tower, Idris Elba, but
I'm sorry about that. I kind of enjoyed the movie in the cinema. You came out of it and you were like, "That was a piece of shit."
Oh no, I didn't say that. I actually thought it was okay, but it just was really disappointing because it could have been so much more. So and the thing is, if you've read The Dark Tower and you've finished it, then you know what I'm talking about. There is no room to be super cynical about any movie made about it, because
at least there's a movie been made about it. How long has Dark Tower been out? 20 years?
It's a long time. We started it in when he was 18. He started
Stephen King?
Yeah, he was 18.
What is he now,
when
60?
He started the Gunslinger.
Holy shit.
Actually, he finished the Gunslinger and took a massive break before he wrote the second book.
Fuck. Oh wow, that's crazy.
It was a lot of years before he started the second book.
Okay, so as for music, anything you've really gone into lately?
Yeah, actually, The Ocean just released their new album. It is quite good.
Is it the same as the old, or something new?
It is a new take on...
What genre is it?
Well, I can't put a genre on it. It's too hard. It does have harsh vocals, but it's not harsh in it's not like brutal death, and it's also not it's not like screamy hardcore.
But that could be anything. That could be music. That could be carnival. That could be any sort of band without any sort of heavy vocals. Is it melodic?
Yeah, so it's a mix of... Okay. It's got clean vocals and has harsh vocals. The harsh vocals, I would say, they are like what I would call sort of an attempt to be heavy without being death metal vocals. That's the best way I can put it. There's no name for that. I don't actually know. Maybe there is that I just don't know. But
when did the album come out?
About a week ago.
Oh, okay. Oh, so pretty recent.
And the other thing about The Ocean is they write. They've been working their way through the different ages of history. I don't mean
not thematically, but
not histories,
lyrically.
Not histories of man.
Oh.
But histories.
They do dinosaur stuff, don't they?
Yeah. So the latest album is the Jurassic period, and it's appropriate. It's actually set. So their whole thing is
the Mesozoic.
Yeah. So the music is the reflection of the period, and the lyrics are not.
Oh.
So the lyrics, but they have some connection to it. So there's not. So the lyrics are not about dinosaurs.
No, but they're about climate and all that sort of stuff.
No, it's not about climate either. It's a human. So the lyrics are always a human issue. So the lyrics always reflect some kind of philosophy or question about life or whatever. But they take the question they pose or the philosophy that they present usually is reflective of the style
Oh, yeah.
It's somehow connected to the overall theme of the album. So
Yeah, I can't think of anything Jurassic that sounds Jurassic except for the theme part.
So Extinction,
the theme for Jurassic
Extinction
Park.
is a big part of it.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So,
yeah.
you know, like, the thing that people think of when we think about Jurassic period is dinosaurs, and the fact that dinosaurs all fucking got wiped out by a meteor. And so it's like the imminent threat of death is the theme that they use to portray in the vocals. So the vocals are really about vulnerability and susceptibility to radical change and that sort of thing. Whereas the last one, I'm actually not sure what the last one was, but the one before that, which is Pelagial, was about when the Earth was covered in heaps of water, and it was the album gets steadily heavier the further you go into it. And it's like going down.
So the pressure gets a bit harder.
Yeah, that's right. And you can feel it. Like you listen to the album, you're like,
and you can feel it.
You can feel it. It's strong. Like it's real heavy. But the vocals reflects like these real dark philosophical ideas of like, you know, at the start it's like it's about how much control do you really have over how you feel about things and all that sort of stuff. By the end, it's like, do you even have free will? Like it's like, is free will even a valid concept? You know, how much of what we believe is actually relevant to our lives and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, the Ocean for me is like, if you want to get deep into something and really like read through the lyrics, you know, they're constantly quoting like Dostoevsky and Tolstoy and there's just a whole bunch of philosophical ideas presented. Every single vocal phrase is some presentation of an idea. It's a bit like, you know, that YouTube video like Dissecting the Matrix.
Yeah.
And it's just like every single scene
has
like
some reflection to some philosophy. Yeah,
yeah, exactly. The Ocean is the same. Like, and it's not just one layer. It's not just about what lyrics they're presenting. It's reflected. The lyrics are a reflection of the music, and I'll say this: the way they write their lyrics is this is literally how they do it. They record the music completely. The music is already done.
Yeah, and then they dub over.
And then they play the tracks and the vocalist makes like humming noises or just singing noises with no lyrics over the top.
Okay.
So he'll have it in his headphones and he'll just sing a bunch of nonsense over the top of the song, and then they record it. And then the guitarist, his name's escaping me right now. I'm terrible with names. But he actually listens back through the vocals and he writes lyrics.
Huh.
And he's the one that writes most of the music. So he writes the lyrics to fit the theme of the music. And he's totally into his philosophy. So he writes all these lyrics based on how the singer vocalizes over the top. And then the singer learns the lyrics and re-sings the same style of vocals, but with the lyrics interjected into there.
Wow.
Which is, yeah, I mean, I actually think that's possibly the best way of writing vocals ever.
Yeah, no, that sounds like by far
because a lot of vocals,
craziest.
A lot of vocals are like trying to retrofit lyrics that you want to put in a song onto a song where they don't belong.
Yeah, well, to me that sounds a lot like modern rap, to be honest. A lot of modern rap sounds exactly like that. So you're just going over a blast, over a fucking backbeat, and I'm just like,
yeah, there's no.
What are you on about?
Yeah, there's no timing, there's no feel.
There's nothing. As for what I'm getting into, I really, really enjoy clowncore at the moment. Just look it up. There's nothing to say. You can sample their entire albums in about half an hour. They are the funkiest thing you'll ever come across in 2020. I'll just leave it at that. And as for that, thank you very much for your time here. Thanks for listening to us. And yeah, have a good night.
Thanks,
and
guys.
we'll see you with the next one.
Thanks for having me.
Catch ya. Yeah, you're very welcome. Yeah, we've got to have you back next time.
Good night.
Good night. Good night, guys.